Hey everyone, I'm David. This is The Rational Live. I'm starting a little early, even though I usually start at 3. I was going to start at 3:30, 4 minutes early here. I just needed some time to get another story together that I wanted to get together last minute, so a little bit of a delay. Also, if you are watching the stream and you first came in and there was no chat, refresh the page. For whatever reason, when I launched the stream, YouTube turned chat off automatically. But if you refresh it now, you'll see it there. So just letting you all know. I have no idea why it was turned off. But so I'll be, of course, taking super chats throughout the stream. Someone asked why not on Twitch. So Twitch doesn't allow you to stream to Twitch and YouTube at the same time if you're a partner or if you're an affiliate. So that is why. I am not able to stream to both, or else they will kick me off. But I do specific Twitch streams. Usually Monday nights now is kind of when I'm definitely on. But I also try to do them randomly as well. Twitch streams are more laid back, less story based. I kind of just scroll through Twitter, talk to the chat, play games, all that stuff. All right. A lot of stories today. Before I do anything else, rationalnational.com/join. That's the Patreon page. Help me out if you can. I know it's a hard time right now. Don't worry about it if you can't. But if you can, if you're able to, then support is what keeps me going. Especially with the way YouTube treats our stories. But luckily now, YouTube has evolved a little bit in terms of their COVID, in terms of what they're allowing channels to cover when it comes to coronavirus. So apparently I have been whitelisted now when it comes to coronavirus content. So I should be able to say the word coronavirus or COVID-19 and not get thrown off YouTube. So hopefully everything's going to be fine and I can post videos with that in the title and it won't be an issue, but we will see. So let me give you some of the stories I'm working on today. So there's actually going to be a lot of Canadian content today. More than usual, because there's a lot I want to talk about. But just scrolling through here. So the first story is going to be on Canada and why we need a universal basic income and who was right about that the entire time. We'll get there. Trump apparently trying out single payer, at least when it comes to coronavirus. So this is a wild story. I'll get into that. I'm going to go over some of the forecasts that just became public for Ontario. the province of Ontario in terms of what we have in terms of cases and where it's going. That'll be kind of a quick story. I know a lot of people don't live in Ontario, but I want to give an idea of basically the effect that social distancing and actual measures that the government takes has if people do listen and if the governments do take steps to deal with this, and comparing that to what if there are no steps taken. Also, Biden still encouraging people to vote during a pandemic, of course. Trudeau makes a deal with Amazon. And then I have some other ones that are not really prepped all that much, but they're links to things I want to show you on Twitter or otherwise, including Elon Musk promising ventilators and delivering something else. Of course, Elon Musk always just pretends, oh, I'm going to help. He's like, he reminds me of Ralph from The Simpsons, where it's like, I'm helping. I'm also doing work. It's like, no, Elon, you're not doing anything. Please stop. Biden cannot answer a question to a family about how they're going to pay for healthcare. We'll show you that. And some other less important things, but we'll get to all this. All right. Already, there are a couple super chats. Thank you so much for the support. I know it's a hard time right now. So for people that can't help, don't worry about it. But Jaguar Rose, love the intro song. I had to download it. And then she names it here. I'm not even sure what the name of it is. It's free content on YouTube. That's where I got it from. So have to use copyright-free music. Prog Rocker says, someone said 2,000 per Canadian is fake. What is true? I'm going to get to that right now. It's not fake, but it's not a universal basic income. So that is the story that I'm about to work on or about to go through. So perfect timing for that question. All right. So it comes as no surprise that NDP leader Jagmeet Singh was correct when he said that Canadians need a universal basic income. Let me show you what Jagmeet Singh called for a few weeks ago and what Canada is actually doing and why it's not enough. So first, here is the initial tweet from NDP leader Jagmeet Singh. This is from March 23rd. Today we are calling for immediate help for all Canadians. Number one, immediate direct help, sending $2,000 with an additional $250 per child directly to all Canadians, a universal basic income. Number two, firing freeze, giving employers more than 75% in a wage subsidy to keep people employed. Now, what's interesting is at this time, neither of these things were even close to happening. The Canadian government ended up instituting a $2,000 a month payment, but not a universal basic income. So it's for people that have lost their job due to COVID-19. Basically, it's means tested. So whether you lost your job or you have to stay home, take care of kids, or whatever it is, for a lot of people, you can apply and you will get the $2,000 a month for the next 4 months, and then EI kicks in if you still need EI. But a lot of people, as I'm going to show you, are falling through the cracks. But before I get there, I also want to say this subsidy ended up happening. So at the time, the Liberal government had announced a 10% wage subsidy. Clearly, it wasn't enough. And they ended up going with the 75% wage subsidy, listening to the NDP. And a lot of the press, the Canadian press, did not cover it in a way that discussed how this was an NDP idea. They just brought it up and said, oh, good, Trudeau's now, bringing this up because it's needed, without mentioning the fact that Jagmeet Singh called for this weeks ago. But apart from that aspect of it, this is the direct impact right now of not having a universal basic income. So from iPolitics, a third of unemployed Canadians left out of EI and the CERB. So the CERB being the $2,000 a month. So 1/3 of unemployed Canadians don't have anything. Let me read just the first 3 paragraphs here. So 1/3 of unemployed Canadians will receive no income support from employment insurance or the federal emergency benefit, according to a new analysis from the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives. an estimated 862,000 Canadians will receive nothing from EI or the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, predicts an analysis released Thursday that offers a picture of who is not covered by the safety net Ottawa has created for workers. So let me give you the actual details here. So here we go. All right. The bulk of those missing out on the two programs, 604,000 Canadians in total, lost their job before COVID-19 hit Canada and can't claim or qualify for EI. This is largely because they lack the number of work hours needed to be eligible or did not work in the previous 2 years. McDonald said these individuals would include those facing a long bout of unemployment, returning from parental leave, some self-employed workers, and those recently off EI benefits but faced with no job opportunities. Since these individuals did not lose their job due to COVID-19, they are also excluded from the CERB, which will provide $2,000 for every 4 weeks for Canadians who have seen their income shrink to zero due to the crisis. So a UBI is needed here. When you have 1/3 of Canadians that are unemployed, unable to receive any benefits right now, and they're facing a job market where are they going to work? This is why, from the start, Jagmeet Singh was correct. There is more. So this is what they're having to do now. The government is having to do to keep up with the demand on this means-tested system. So more than 1,000 CRA employees have volunteered to bolster those numbers and take calls from an estimated 300,000 Canadians per day who are expected to inquire about the government's $2,000 a month Canada Emergency Response Benefit. So these 300,000 calls per day wouldn't be happening if this was a universal basic income. There would be no need to call in and inquire about if you can apply or if you qualify for this benefit, because it would already be guaranteed to you. It would be universal. So there are actually, as Mr. Sinister, Independent Socialist, points out, if we had UBI, they could stay home and self-isolate. We are going to infect thousands to protect the idea that means testing is a viable option. So we're talking about more people, more employees here, having to put themselves at risk in order to take these calls about the benefit when these people could be staying home and receiving the benefit. And these people, these Canadians, would not have to be calling the government to figure out if they can apply or if they qualify for the benefit. Again, another side benefit here of a UBI. In fact, the press is even beginning to wake up to it. So Althea Raj of HuffPost tweeted out on April 1st, starting to really wonder whether it might have been easier to send everyone monthly checks and claw them back from those who didn't need them next year through income tax. Of course. So this, again, when you even have the press, like Althea Raj is not, a democratic socialist here, but she's recognizing the reality of how when you add more complications to the system and have this sort of patchwork system and this means-tested system, that you could eliminate all of this ridiculousness and have a more efficient system if you have a universal basic income during this entire crisis. One more thing to share here. This is Liberal Finance Minister Bill Morneau. His response to why isn't this a universal benefit? Morneau says, we came to the conclusion quite rapidly that it is not nearly as advantageous as what we came up with the CERB. That combined with wage subsidy is the right way to do this, Morneau says. Again, unwilling to recognize how people are falling through the cracks here and how they have to employ more people to deal with this means-tested system. So, yes, while Canada is doing, I would say, more than the U.S. is doing, there are still people here that are, a lot of people, 1/3 of people unemployed, falling through the cracks that are not getting any benefit at all. So yes, $2,000 a month for the next 4 months is great if it applies to you. If it doesn't apply to you, then what? All right. And I should just mention on the side here, none of these systems, I mean, there is no real way to deal with the fact that a lot of people don't file income tax. Because even in a UBI, it would have to be based on the fact that you have an account with the CRA that you file taxes. So people that are homeless or students that haven't filed income tax for a while, what happens with them? Who knows? There needs to be more awareness of who is not getting any help here. Okay. I think I see a couple more super chats here. Ahmed Husseini says, have you heard of COPE in BC? Please interview Jean Swanson. Talking about the union? I will look into Jean Swanson. Will Eslini? I don't see a message there, but thank you. Oh, thanks for your work. I don't know why it's not popping up. Hold up. That's why I can't read these properly. Oh, coalition. Sorry. COPE is Coalition of Progressive Electors. Okay. I have no visibility on what's happening in British Columbia. Sorry, I'm looking for my super chat page here. All right, there we go. So Will says, thanks for your work. Thank you, Will, for your donation. Boogie O. Winston says, hey, David, hope you're doing all right. You playing Animal Crossing? I am. Daily. So Animal Crossing right now is getting me through this pretty well. It's like the one escape right now where I can pretend this pandemic doesn't exist as I'm collecting wood and making furniture. So it's pretty cool. All right, next story. Trump tries out single payer. All right, there's a lot of links here. Bear with me as I prep this story behind the scenes. All right. I think I got this. So it appears Donald Trump is trying out single payer. This story is kind of crazy. And it also really shows you the failure of Democratic leadership right now. To be outflanked, potentially outflanked here by Donald Trump, outlefted by Donald Trump when it comes to healthcare is disappointing to say the least. But first, let me show you the story that came out today. This from Market Watch. It's a Wall Street Journal story. Trump administration set to pay hospitals for treating uninsured coronavirus patients. This is what happens in a single-payer system. And in fact, it's pretty close to Medicare for all in terms of at least the coverage of coronavirus, as I'm going to show you in a minute here exactly why. So the Trump administration expects to use a federal stimulus package to pay hospitals that treat uninsured people with the new coronavirus as long as they agree not to bill the patients or issue unexpected charges, according to two people familiar with the planning. The plan, which could be released Friday, comes as the White House faces mounting criticism for not launching a special enrollment period for people seeking coverage under the Affordable Care Act. More on that in a second. Congressional Democrats are also pressuring the administration and insurers to waive treatment costs for the growing number of Americans who are losing employer-provided health coverage as job losses mount. Again, I'll get to the job losses as well in a second. This piece here. Hospitals treating the uninsured often bill patients for the difference between the amount they get from the government and the cost of care. The uninsured also may get bills for care provided by doctors who aren't directly employed by the hospital. Both would be barred under the administration proposal, and hospitals would likely be reimbursed at current Medicare rates. People familiar with the planning said. This is what it's similar to how a Medicare for All system would be rolled out. Now, obviously, it wouldn't be rolled out based on disease. It'd be rolled out based on age. But reimbursed at current Medicare rates, it's operating similarly to a single-payer system here. Now, this is happening. You have Donald Trump here potentially rolling out some, very narrow version of a single-payer system for coronavirus, while still Joe Biden, the coronavirus hasn't changed Joe Biden's mind on Medicare for all. So he still, during this crisis just a few days ago, still is not in support of Medicare for all. Right now, at least in this very narrow sense, look, I don't want to give Trump any credit here. He's doing this almost, you can say, in a way to avoid having to expand Obamacare. But still, when it comes to healthcare, he is now doing more when it comes to single payer than the Democratic leadership wants to do. And the presumptive nominee, unless Bernie dominates all the upcoming states, still, for Democrats, does not support Medicare for all. This was tweeted out yesterday by Hillary Clinton, April 2nd. Millions of people have lost their employer-tied health care over the last 2 weeks because of the pandemic. True. It's an easy call. Reopen the healthcare exchanges. What money do people have to be able to buy back into healthcare after they lost it? Where is this money coming from? Like, these people live in an alternate reality. As Walker Bregman points out here, 40% of Americans cannot afford a $400 emergency. Average deductible for a silver plan on exchanges is $4,000. Average deductible for a bronze plan on exchanges, $6,000. People like Hillary Clinton really have no idea what life is like for most people in America. Thinking that, all you got to do, let people buy back into healthcare. Everything's going to be fine. That's all you got to do. No, people should be guaranteed healthcare. They shouldn't have to think about it ever at all. Having to pay for healthcare should never have to be on anybody's mind, because it should be guaranteed to them through a single payer system. How many times do I talk about single payer in Canada? How I never think about healthcare because I don't have to. Unless I need it, I never have to think about it. Under a single payer system, like in Canada, I can go to any walk-in clinic. I have a family doctor. I can make same-day appointments. I know this isn't the case for everybody in the country, and definitely not everybody in America. I hear how long you have to wait for your doctor, but I can make same-day appointments with my doctor. So this idea of wait times is ridiculous. Wait times are completely dependent, in America, are completely dependent on how much money you have. If you're wealthy, yeah, there's no wait times. If you're wealthy in America, healthcare is great. If you're everybody else, it's not great. So for the average Canadian, wait times are not an issue. If there are wait times at all when it comes to their own family doctor, oftentimes there isn't a wait time. And if there is, again, you can go to any walk-in clinic. So I never think about healthcare. And I had surgery once. Again, I go get the surgery, come home. Like, it's a very simple process. Like one sheet of paper at most, just so doctors know who I am. But other than that, I walk in, I have my health card, they know who I am, get the surgery or see my doctor, whatever it is, go home, that's it. Never hear about it again. But Hillary Clinton, Democratic leadership, still fighting to prop up this status quo private for-profit system. More here to share. Jeffree Stein from Washington Post. 30 million Americans could lose their private health insurance over the next few months. So let me, in fact, show you what that looks like as I sit here. So Americans are losing their jobs. And because a lot of them have healthcare tied to their employer, this is what happens. All these people right now are going unemployed. Many of these people, millions of these people, had their healthcare tied to their employer. Now it's gone. And what? The status quo of buying back into your healthcare plan when people have no money? How is that a plan? That is no plan. You need a single payer system. Now, I understand it's not going to happen right now, but clearly, if Donald Trump can guarantee that people with coronavirus are going to be covered by the government through a similar single payer system where the rates are the same as Medicare, then he can do more. Democrats should be pushing for more. They should be pushing for a single payer system right now. Even if they think it's not possible, you have to push, because if you start the argument, you start the debate with the compromise or even less than the compromise, then all you're going to do is pull everybody else to your right-wing position. Now, look, the reality is Democratic leadership, they don't want single payer because they have the money that they receive through private interests, the healthcare industry, big pharma. That is the reason they are not fighting for single payer. It's not because they don't think they can get it. It's because they don't want it. So that's the reality. But Democratic voters should be pushing their politicians, should be calling their congresspeople, their senators to push for single payer. There needs to be pressure on this, because when you see Donald Trump able to get through, or attempt to get through anyways, what he's trying to get through now, clearly more is possible. And this recent story follows this story from April 2nd. Trump says it doesn't seem fair that 30 million Americans are uninsured and suggests he may expand Medicare or Medicaid. You potentially have Joe Biden going up against Donald Trump. And Trump's position is further left-wing. Forget left-right. Is more moral. Trump has a more moral healthcare position, at least rhetorically, than Biden does. That's crazy. Now, again, Trump is a horrible person. Nobody should ever vote for Donald Trump. He's a racist piece of shit. But understand, this kind of strategy works. He will fool enough people into thinking that they will be covered if he talks about expanding Medicare. And you have Joe Biden fighting for Obamacare, fighting for a for-profit system. So it's completely ridiculous what Democratic leadership is. And really, because they are not fighting for a single payer, and the reason they aren't fighting for it is because of the interest that they are tied into, big pharma, the healthcare industry. All Democratic voters have really is their vote and their voice. So apart from, when hopefully this all passes, apart from protests, apart from calling on your lawmakers to actually fight for you, not much is going to get done unless the American people actually stand up and demand a Medicare for all system. I don't know how Americans deal with what things are like right now. Like, I worry about getting sick like everyone else does. But at the very least, I know if I get sick, treatment's covered. And even apart from coronavirus, say something else happens. At the very least, I know that I am covered when it's financially. Like, I'm covered when it comes to money, when it comes to healthcare. Like, I don't understand how Americans can even live in a system where if you get sick, you may die because you can't afford it. It's so crazy to me. It's so crazy. And I don't know how many times I have to talk about it. It's maybe like 1/3 of what I talk about now is healthcare, because it really is one of the major dividing lines between the U.S. and the rest of the world. All right, some more chats here. Joel says, "You are amazing." Thank you, Joel. Very generous super chat. You're a great guy. Thank you. Mateus N says, "Notice that Cortez has been getting a lot of heat from the left recently. Is it fair criticism, or are they being a bit harsh?" It depends on the criticism. It's a mixture. I think it's fair to ask, why hasn't Ocasio-Cortez backed, unless she has in the past few days, why hasn't she endorsed someone like Cori Bush in a primary challenge, when she endorsed Cori Bush 2 years ago, before she was a congressperson? I mean, the obvious answer is because she feels the internal pressure from Democratic leadership to not challenge sitting members of Congress. Like, we know why she's not doing it, but at the same time, Ocasio-Cortez is still one of the I guess, for lack of a better term, better Congress people that are out there. So it's, yes, she could be doing a lot more and should be doing more in terms of her fight, but it doesn't make sense to overly criticize somebody who is still one of the better members of Congress. But at the same time, I understand the argument that, you want to criticize people that you think you can actually move on the issues. So if AOC gets enough criticism, maybe she will be a little more bold. I can see that argument, but I think it makes sense to be balanced in terms of who you are criticizing. That's why I try to criticize everybody. You want to make sure you aren't leaving anybody behind when it comes to criticizing. All right. So I just want to go a bit over the numbers that were just released in Ontario, the province of Ontario in Canada, in terms of what the cases for COVID-19 are right now, what the best case scenario is, and what the worst case scenario is. Now, while this may seem very Ontario-centric in terms of the content here, this really shows you how much of an impact that government intervention and what people do have on this entire pandemic. So if people actually listen and stay home as much as possible, only go out to get, say, groceries, then we'll have the best case scenario. But if people don't listen, and governments, whether it's Ontario or whoever it is, don't tell people to stay home, then we have the worst case scenario. So these are, as Althea Raj tweets out, some of the striking forecasts from Ontario today. Federal officials warn that the figures can shift through individual personal action. So this is projected cases in Ontario by April 30th. So no intervention. Maybe if I go small here, we can see a little more of this. There we go. So here we go. So this is the current scenario right now. If we keep going the way we're going, then we'll have 80,000 cases by April 30th. If there's no intervention, then 300,000 cases. Massive difference here. And full future intervention, so if you do as much as possible, people stay home, 12,500. Showing you the massive range here in terms of how much this pandemic can or potentially could not or may not impact people. Projected deaths, similar in terms of how it's all positioned here. So no intervention would mean 6,000 deaths by the end of the month. Current scenario, 1,600 deaths by the end of the month. And full future intervention, 200. Projected Ontario deaths over the course of the pandemic. So this is over. I believe this is 18 months to 2 years. I think this is what this entails. So 100,000 potentially dead over the course of the pandemic in Ontario. Or, I know this is a massive range here, 3,000 to 15,000. So this range completely depends on what people do. If you stay home, if you social distance, and if you don't, well, then you aren't only just hurting yourself, you're hurting everybody else potentially around you. Now, this one I find the most interesting here. So this is Ontario ICU capacity for COVID-19. So this dotted line here, the purple one, I think it's purple. This is how many 900 additional planned ICU beds for COVID-19 patients. So right now I think we're still down here, 410 available ICU beds. We are at this date, early April. So we are still not hitting our limit here, our capacity in terms of what we have right now with ICU beds. But the best case scenario is the blue lines. So the best case scenario is that we will exceed our current available capacity of ICU beds and just barely almost touch the expansion of ICU beds. So the best case scenario is that we have more cases than we can actually handle right now, but still have enough beds eventually to deal with it. And then amazingly here, I mean, what I find most encouraging here is it tapers off near the end of the month. But you imagine, under this best case scenario, these numbers could be dwindling down from the end of April until they're completely gone several months later. But again, this is the best case scenario. Worst case scenario is it keeps going up and up and up, and we can't deal with it. So this is all dependent on your actions. It's all dependent on what we do as a society, as not even, again, this is a worldwide issue. So we have to work together. Like something like, even in the best case scenario, if we start easing up on what we're doing and begin to, start going back out really quickly before it's really over, then we can basically have a situation where we are having a lot more cases and starting the process all over again. So it has to be dealt with properly. And even if at some point we begin to see it go down, like you're seeing it in the best case scenario here, it doesn't mean it's over. It means what we're doing right now is working, and to keep doing that until we have no more cases. So this is why, a lot of experts are predicting this could last 18 months to 2 years, which is so depressing. Like the idea that I mean, especially if you're in Canada and you waited all friggin' winter to go out in the summer only to have this hit now and realize that we got to, stay in here as long as possible. The fact that this could be prolonged for 2 years or more if we don't deal with this properly, you have to take the measures now. You have to stay home. Stay the frig home. When it comes to, I have a story on Wisconsin voting coming up. Don't vote. I'm sorry, don't vote. There's mail-in ballots. Do that. Don't go out. Don't get into crowds. Don't go near, honestly, don't go near people. I know it sounds weird, but don't go near people. It is the only way you help prevent the spread. And a lot of people have it and they don't even realize it because they aren't showing symptoms. People are asymptomatic for, I believe it's 5 to 10 days. So you could have it right now and think, oh, I'm fine. I feel healthy. I'm not going to get anybody sick. I need to go out and go vote or whatever it is. And you could potentially be spreading it to other people without you even realizing it. And right now, the only country that's really dealt with this properly, as far as I've seen, is South Korea in terms of their ability to track who people have been in contact with and then contact their contacts to ensure that those people are also self-isolating. So I don't have the data in front of me, but if you've seen these graphs and you've seen their line, it's tapered off considerably. And it's because they've actually, from the start, when they had the first case on January 16th, they've taken this seriously. And they have traced person to person and ensured that people that came into contact with COVID-19, even if they aren't positive but may have come into contact with it, they've been tested and they've been self-isolating. And they've been able to deal with this in a way where they're going to come out of this a lot better than most countries, because they actually took it seriously from the start and people actually listened. So that's just a warning for people. I just want people to understand how serious this is. And if you take the steps now, it'll be better for all of us later on. All right. Joe Krockenberg says, the fact that we are not closing down the inside grocery stores and doing curbside is a joke. It's got to be responsible for a lot of spread. Grocery stores every single day are just as bad. I work at one. This is an issue that I don't even know the solution to. How do you do curbside for a giant grocery store? Especially when there's like ice cream and, frozen food. Or if you're in an area where it's bad weather, maybe it's raining. I don't know how that gets done. Though, I agree with you in the sense that grocery stores are not. I've been to grocery stores; they're not good. It's the one time during this entire pandemic I have real heightened anxiety. I mean, I've had heightened anxiety the entire time, but at these grocery stores, I'm actually worried for my safety, because especially when you're down aisles and someone else is down the same aisle as you and you got to walk past somebody. What I'm hearing some grocery stores doing now is they're putting one-way arrows in aisles, so people can only walk down in one direction, and that way it allows people to be spaced out and not have to pass by other people when they're in aisles. So that's one way potentially to deal with it. Again, though, it requires people to actually listen and see the arrows and actually, not go the direction they're not supposed to go. So, apart from that, grocery stores are one of the worst places right now, and it's because we need them. We need the food, and I agree with you. There really hasn't been a proper way to deal with that. Joe Krokenberg again says they do nothing to protect us except sanitizer, no gloves and no masks. I work at Publix. I don't feel safe, but I have to work. No masks is a big one. Yeah, if you work at a grocery store, you should be given a mask and gloves for sure. So stay safe out there. That is a tough situation. N Starks says, David, us Americans are sad. I hear you. Dustin Harrell says, I've written a couple times before. Today, I just wanted to tell you that I had a rational national sticker made and put it on my car. Really? To hopefully spread your channel name here in Ohio. Thanks for all that you do. Dustin, that is amazing. Also, a very generous super chat. Thank you. That is amazing. That reminds me that I need a store. T-shirts, mugs, stickers. At some point, I will have that stuff. But that is awesome. Really cool. All right. More. I haven't even gotten to the good stories yet. Actually, no. That Trump story was kind of interesting. But here we go. This next story is going to be on Wisconsin and Joe Biden. All right. So the state of Wisconsin is still holding their Democratic primary on April 7th. This despite warnings from lawmakers. I'm going to show you some of the people that have been telling Wisconsin to delay this primary. But this also comes while Joe Biden seems perfectly content with Wisconsin holding their primary on Tuesday. So first, I want to show you some of the, even the media reaction right now. People that you would not think would be on the correct side of issues, because they normally aren't. But someone like Chris Cillizza here from CNN. Why in the world is Wisconsin still holding a primary on Tuesday? Here we go. Jeremy Scahill. So tweets out, mayors of major cities in Wisconsin, including Milwaukee, a federal judge, and Bernie Sanders, called for Wisconsin to delay its primary. Quote, I don't think that it's good public policy. I think it's dangerous during a pandemic, said Milwaukee mayor. Biden says it should proceed as scheduled. So you have lawmakers calling this out, and still they are going through with this. Now, I got to show you Joe Biden. So Ben Hallman tweeted out, Ben Hallman, by the way, great guy, has worked on some fantastic videos for Bernie Sanders in terms of fan-made videos. This is amazing. So watch Joe Biden here in terms of what he is, his position on Wisconsin.
I listened to the scientists. A convention having tens of thousands of people in one arena is very different than having people walk into a polling booth with accurate spacing to 6 to 10 feet apart, one at a time, going in and have machines scrubbed down. But I do think there are going to be a lot more. I think you could hold the election as well, dealing with mail-in ballots and same-day registration. I mean, there's a lot of things that can be done. That's for the Wisconsin courts and folks to decide. But I think it's possible to do both, to have both more mail-in ballots. People, and today is the last day, I guess, till 5 o'clock to ask for one. It was an hour time difference from where I am in Wisconsin. And I think it could be done based on what I've been hearing from the news and what I understand the governor and others are saying. But that's for them to decide.
All right, this is wrong. This is actually dangerous information. He's saying, oh, sure, the convention's different because at these polling locations, they wipe the machines down. People stand 6 feet apart. This is Joe Biden doing the exact same thing that Tom Perez, DNC Chair Tom Perez, did before states voted in March, including Florida. And what happened? Those states saw people get COVID-19 after they voted. So in Florida especially, there's one story that sticks out in my mind. Poll workers in Florida, a number of them tested positive for COVID-19 after the Florida primary. And all the blame really goes to Tom Perez and the governors. And you could say the Democratic leaders, including Joe Biden here, that are still okay with these states continuing to vote in the face of all of this. A little more here. Molly Beck. Milwaukee election officials just announced the city will have just 5 polling locations for Tuesday's election instead of the 180 they typically do amid a massive poll worker shortage. Up to 50,000 Milwaukee voters are expected to vote, which means 10,000 could show up at each site. So this idea that, voters are going to stand 6 feet apart, you're going to wipe all the machines down. People working at these polling locations did not have the proper supplies when they needed them weeks ago during the other primaries. Why would they have them now? Why do you think they're going to be prepared for this now? And even if they have maybe 2 bottles of sanitizer instead of 1 like last time, are people in line really going to be all practicing social distancing? There isn't going to be one person that's potentially exposed. The fact that because this is the thing, they know that there is no way to guarantee that every single voter will be safe. They know they can't guarantee that. So all they're saying is, leave it up to the governors. They think it's okay. It's going to be fine. If you are a leader, you should be calling for changes. Don't just say, it's like saying, oh, I don't like what Trump is doing, but leave it up to Trump. It's fine. I'm not gonna say anything different. He's in charge. No, you as the leader, you as a leader in the Democratic Party, Joe Biden, you have to be calling on states to do the right thing. If you are not calling on them to delay these primaries, then you are personally putting people at risk. That is what you are doing. You can see the headlines now. In a month's time, people are going to have COVID-19 that went to vote and got it while voting. That will 100% happen. Poll workers, people voting, guaranteed people will get it. If you're in Wisconsin, you should have the ability to vote by ballot. So the one thing that the state has done, I'm not sure if I have it here. So I don't think it's not here, but the one thing that the state has done is they have delayed the maybe it is here. They have delayed the results for the election to Tuesday, or sorry, to 6 days later, April 13th. So the election's on April 7th. They're delaying it, the results till April 13th, because they are going to have a longer window to accept absentee ballots. So if you're in Wisconsin and you can vote via absentee ballot, then you must do that. Do not go out in any circumstance. Do not go out to vote. It is not safe for you to vote. And look, I'm somebody, I want to see Bernie win states here. I would love, if you're a Bernie supporter, I would love for him to win Wisconsin, but I'm not going to tell you to vote for him because it's not safe. So stay home. And if you can vote via absentee ballot, then do that. But do not put yourself at risk. It is not worth it. But it is disgusting to see what Democratic leadership continues to do, exposing their voters to this danger, knowingly putting their voters at risk instead of pushing for a delay. All right. Let me grab some chats here. The good thing is a lot of states have delayed their primaries. So a lot of people, the reality is a lot of people that would have gotten coronavirus are not going to get it in those states that actually delayed their primaries. But it is just wild to see how much contempt these governments have for their people. Where was I? Oh, I think I missed some earlier. Apologies. I don't know why I just see these now. Or did I miss them? I don't know. Leslie Wheeler says, my family lives in Virginia, which has been put on lockdown. Hubby works in a pharmacy. I believe him going to work with the public. While I stay at home with the baby cancels each other out. Yeah. I feel so much for people that have to go out and work. Like if you're an essential worker and you're somebody you're public facing, like you're working in a grocery store, or obviously if you're a doctor or healthcare professional, I just can't imagine. Like people that have to work right now should be getting paid a lot more. There should be money put into yes, take care of people that lost their job, of course, but also people that have to work right now should be getting raises, should be getting help from the government. They should be getting something for having to put themselves on the line in the process. Balthazar says, sorry, David, as much as I like milk and bags and Tim Hortons ice caps, if Bernie gets cheated again, I'm moving to Muni, internet, and single payer soul. Seoul, South Korea. David Hart says Governor Evers of Wisconsin has changed the election. Did he change it? I just did a whole story on Wisconsin not changing their election. He just changed it. Great. This is why. You know how much news happens on Fridays? Like, I will finish a live stream, and then there's like 12 stories that I wish I covered during my live stream on Friday. I don't know what it is about Fridays recently, but a lot of stories happening on Fridays. It's pronounced Evers. A lot of stories happening on Fridays. All right. Well, there goes that piece. Joe Krockenberg says you convert all the customer service staff to shoppers. Do an app, notify them the order is ready, then pull up and you put it right in their trunk. Yes. But even in that scenario, those people need cars. So, I mean, the ultimate solution here, I guess, is ordering groceries online. I still feel bad for people that have to collect those groceries. I'm just looking up this Wisconsin story. I cannot believe. Are you sure? Okay, if it was delayed, I'm not seeing it. Did it just happen? Did it just happen? Because I'm not seeing anything about it. Are you lying? Well, I'll look into this later. All I've seen, and all I'm seeing right now, is that they've delayed, Wisconsin has delayed the exception or the acceptance of mail-in ballots till the 13th. But even, yeah, I'm not seeing this May 20th thing. But even May, no, like you got to push the primary. If you're pushing the primary, you got to push it deep into the summer. If even then, like, we keep pushing these dates back for all these events, whether it's primaries or whatever it is, assuming that things will be fine at that point. I don't think it's going to be. It's very likely this is not going to be over, by mid-June when a lot of these primary states are voting. So I don't even understand how this is all going to work out. Like, I don't. This primary is essentially illegitimate. Like, the results are just not what the results would be otherwise in a normal situation. But I guess you can make the argument that's the world we're in, so you got to deal with it how it comes. Okay, let me do another story before I move on to other chats. Here we go. That was very Canadian of me. Here we go. Because I'm doing a Canadian story. I'm looking at the chat briefly to see if anybody else is saying things about Wisconsin. I'm really stuck on this story because I can't believe I just spent like 10 minutes discussing Wisconsin. Okay. All right. This is kind of a, I don't know how to describe this story. So Justin Trudeau has made a deal with Amazon Canada, to distribute medical supplies. Now, this is odd, considering we have Canada Post to make a deal with a massive private corporation to distribute supplies when you already have the post office. I mean, it shows you that even in a crisis, these neoliberals have to look for a way to give corporations, a piece of the pie. So I'm just going to show you here the headline from Yahoo Finance. Canada signs deal with Amazon to distribute medical supplies. I'm going to get to some reaction here in a minute from Jagmeet Singh on this. First, this is also in the midst of a situation where Amazon is not treating their workers properly, not just in the US, but also in Canada. So this is an article from The Star. This is from March 19th. As online orders surge, what about the Amazon workers? Just going to read a little bit here. Crowded workspaces, limited access to paid sick days, and confusion over quarantine leave. Those are the conditions described to The Star by 3 workers at Amazon warehouses in the Greater Toronto Area. Conditions that one employee is concerned could raise broader health risks, and demand for online deliveries surges amid the COVID-19 pandemic. So this is Amazon workers worried about just the normal surge in orders during this crisis, let alone now Canada striking a deal to use Amazon to distribute medical supplies. What kind of stress is that now going to have on the system with this extra piece added on top of it? And again, we have Canada Post. We already have someone who can actually distribute these supplies without having to go to private industry. I want to show you. Actually, before I do that, this piece here looks also good. A petition began circulating late Tuesday night, calling on the international delivery giant Amazon to ramp up safety measures at its Toronto area fulfillment centers. Quote, social distancing is nearly impossible in a facility of hundreds to thousands of employees, the petition spearheaded by the Brampton-based Warehouse Workers Center says. Because the number of orders to be fulfilled has drastically increased as people stay home, warehouse workers are putting in 50 hours a week or more. This is unsustainable and needs to stop. And again, this is March 19th, well before Trudeau announced this deal with Amazon today, Friday. Jagmeet Singh reacted to this, NDP leader, saying it's disappointing that the government has chosen Amazon to handle distribution of critical PPE to provinces. Recent reports of Amazon avoiding COVID-19 safety measures like physical distancing put workers' lives at risk and threatens the public's health amid a pandemic. We have an incredibly hard working team at Canada Post that handles national logistics every day. Privatization can't be the answer. At minimum, the government should make absolutely certain that workers are safe and are paid a living wage. And of course, they're not going to. This is the reason Justin Trudeau has passed this off to Amazon, is because they don't have to worry about the workers there. And in the process, Amazon is going to be making a good chunk of money from this. So, look, I have been both critical and complimentary of Canada's response. In some ways, I'm impressed that the Trudeau government has been as vocal as they have been. Every day at 11:15, Trudeau speaks, makes some announcement, talks about the ongoing crisis, what's happening, gives an update. I think it's good to have that communication. So I've been impressed by the government's communication. But they have not gone far enough. I did a story earlier on universal basic income, how the NDP have called for a universal basic income from the start of this process. 1/3 of Canadians unemployed do not qualify for EI benefits or for the Canada Relief plan. So you have 1/3 of Canadians falling through the cracks when it comes to needing help, needing money, not getting it. And you have situations like this where the Trudeau government is just giving away a chunk of change to a massive corporation that does not treat their workers properly and have not been practicing social distancing in a way to actually ensure their workers are not getting sick. All right. I hope to find an update to this Wisconsin question by the end of this stream. I'm not seeing anything. Oh, now, 31 minutes ago, Wisconsin governor pushes for emergency coronavirus delay of Tuesday election. GOP balks. Let me give an update here then. Let me do that. So it appears there's been an update to the Wisconsin primary story. While I was shooting it, it sounds like now the Wisconsin governor is pushing for an emergency coronavirus delay of Tuesday's election, April 7th. I haven't read this yet. This is news to me. Someone in the super chat, I should give credit to them, but brought this up. Sorry, I can't find your name right now. Here you go. David Hart. So David Hart in the chat brought this up. Let's see what this is about. So Democratic governor of Wisconsin is making a last-minute push to delay the state's controversial election, but Republicans wanted to go ahead as planned on Tuesday despite the coronavirus crisis. What I find weird is, why do Republicans care? Trump is going to win the state anyways. Maybe they just want to get it over with, but or they want to get Democratic voters sick. I guess that's another potential reason. But Governor Tony Evers summoned lawmakers to a Saturday special session to consider emergency action to put off the vote amid a state stay-at-home order and a still spreading national pandemic. This was a point I don't believe I made in my initial story. Wisconsin has a stay-at-home order right now. So to on one hand have or tell people to stay home because it's not safe to go out, and then on the other hand tell people it's okay to vote on April 7th. It's a little crazy. So Evers wants the election delayed till mid-May. He called for all voters to get an absentee ballot mailed to them and for polling places to be open only for disabled voters. What? I don't get that. So they're still trying to keep the polling locations open, but only for disabled voters. So you're okay putting them at risk? I don't quite understand that thought process. Let's watch his announcement here.
Evers here. Hi, Wisconsin. Governor Tony Evers here. I want to begin by thanking all of you for doing your part to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Your efforts to maintain social distancing, the sacrifices you have made when it comes to your jobs, your schooling, and your day-to-day activities are what we need to flatten the curve to protect the people of our state. It's also what we need to do to support our healthcare workers who are making heroic efforts to test, treat, and prevent this virus. At the same time, we also have to be patient with ourselves and each other because we're all doing this for the very first time. There's bound to be some glitches along the way. We must remember that at the end of the day, we're all doing our best and we're all trying to do the right thing to keep people safe. One of those glitches along the way has been the upcoming election. Folks, there's no real good answer to this. It's not an easy situation, and frankly, no one wishes this was easy as much as I do. This is, as I've said, a rapidly evolving situation. I said that I would listen to the advice of the public health experts. I said I would let science be our guide, and we are. But as we face these challenges over the past few weeks, I have also asked the people of our state to do their part to help. Well, here's the bottom line, folks. If, as elected officials, we're going to expect the people of our state to make sacrifices to keep all of us safe, then by golly, we better be willing to do our part too. So today, I announce that I'm calling the legislature into special session to do its part, just as all of us are, to help keep our neighbors, our families, and our communities safe. Folks, I can't move this election or change the rules on my own. My hands are tied. And that's why I spoke to legislative leaders about this weeks ago. I even publicly called on them to act. They have made it clear they are unwilling to make changes. I was hopeful that the courts would intervene and help, and they did in fact implement some, but not all of the common sense changes I've been advocating for. All the while, I've moved ahead making plans to hold a safe and fair election. I've called up our National Guard to help meet staffing needs at polls across our state. I've worked to provide PPE, cleaning supplies, hand sanitizers, and pens for every polling location.
Okay, this is too long. But it sounds like it's not official. So he's calling for it. He's asking the legislature to take up legislation allowing an all mail-in election, to send a ballot to every registered voter who has not already requested one by May 19th, and to extend the time for those ballots to May 26th. Okay. So in this case, the delay to May does make sense, because it is not a delay to May and then you're still in-person voting. No, this is a complete mail-in ballot vote. So I guess the reason they're keeping it open for disabled voters is I don't know. I don't know why they can't vote by mail as well. So it's weird, but I'm sure there's reasons for it. I don't know them. But that would be a good move. If Wisconsin can delay it and just make it mail-in only, that's the way to do it. At this point, that's the way all these primaries should be done, is through mail-in ballot. And everybody should be sent a mail-in ballot in every state. So, all right. Good to see that update. Let's hope this does happen, and that people stay home and stay safe. All right. Look at that. Updating stories on the fly. I don't know why it took so long for someone to pick that story up. So he announced that 2 hours ago, but Daily News, first report I saw, was posted 30 minutes ago. All right. So I've done all my bigger stories. The rest of them are just kind of tweets I want to share. But I'm just laughing at what I'm about to show you. Jesus. Dear God. Okay. All right. So during a live stream, Joe Biden was asked how a family is going to pay their healthcare premiums when they don't have the means to do so. So I want to show you this because remember, Joe Biden still does not support Medicare for all. In fact, he said he would veto Medicare for all if it came to his desk. And this is also during a pandemic where right now Donald Trump is behind the scenes considering to cover people that have coronavirus at Medicare rates, essentially implementing a very narrow form of single payer for people with the coronavirus. So I want to show you this video. I saw this retweeted by Brianna Joy Gray, Bernie's press secretary, but it was posted by Case Study QB. Let's watch this interaction.
I'm wearing this mask to protect my family as I've been diagnosed based on my symptoms for the coronavirus. Although I cannot be tested due to the limited number of tests available here in New York City. My husband and I are both hardworking, college-educated Americans who, like countless other Americans, will suffer as a result of this pandemic. I work full-time for a small company that does not offer health benefits. My husband is a freelancer. We currently pay over $2,000 a month for health insurance for our family of 3. My question for you is that when our savings account inevitably runs out, due to him not being able to work right now, what is it that we sacrifice? Do we sacrifice food, rent, or health care?
You should not have to sacrifice anything. Let me say that again. You should not have to sacrifice anything. Not just because it's the fair thing to be taking care of your entire family and every family in your circumstance, but because it's best for the whole country, the entire economy. It's not just doing a favor for any individual. Number one, your health care, you should not have to pay a penny for testing, and it should be available to you by now. We were promised it a while ago. It should be available for you to be tested and determine what needs to be done. Number two, the House just passed an unemployment proposal that increases by $600 the unemployment insurance you'd get, whether or not you were part of, you had been covered by unemployment insurance or paid into it before, including your husband who may have been, he's a entrepreneur on his own, doesn't have employees. You will be covered. And that should be done, but that requires the federal government to help the states set up the unemployment offices in a way that they can handle this enormous call on the need for being the unemployment insurance. Thirdly, the cost of a test should be absolutely zero for you, number one. And number two, I think the House and the Senate are going to have to go back and make sure anything.
Okay. So that was the first time I saw the full video. I had just initially, I have a hard time watching Joe Biden for longer than like a minute. So it's the first time I saw the full video. Wow. At no point did he answer the question. What are they going to do when they can't afford their healthcare premium? What are they going to do? Well, testing's free. That wasn't the question. How are they going to afford a $2,000 a month premium? How are they going to afford their health care? This is where a competent politician would come in and say, this is a ridiculous situation. Millions of Americans, just like you, are feeling the same thing. This is why we got to fight for a single-payer Medicare for all system. Right now, Congress should be pushing for that. We should be pushing Donald Trump to pass Medicare for all, pass a single-payer system. Fight for people. Now, look, I understand the reality of it is right now is practically impossible. But with that said, Donald Trump, as I discussed, is actually thinking about covering people that have coronavirus through a single-payer means. So if you're already seeing cracks in the system and cracks in the Trump administration in terms of what they're willing to support, why aren't you fighting for the full thing? Why the hell is Trump further left than you on healthcare? How does that make any sense? So he has no answer for this family because his plan would not cover them. When your health insurance is tied to your employer, you are screwed no matter what. And even if you like your health insurance, there's still out-of-pocket expenses. You still need money to be able to afford it, to be able to get the treatment. So the entire system is just completely nutty. And you see, all Biden can go back to is, well, the testing is covered. The testing is covered. That wasn't the question. What are people going to do that can't afford healthcare? What are those people going to do? People that just got laid off. You're seeing now, I think it's at 6.6 million was the last count of people that are newly unemployed. What are they going to do? Many of them just lost their healthcare that was tied to their employer. What are they going to do? Biden has no answer for this. And it shows you why, not even just Joe Biden, but the Democratic leadership is just, they don't have the answers that people need. And if Biden becomes the nominee, and if he wins, the only way he would win is if enough anti-Trump voters come out. But if you have now potentially Trump making enough people think that he now maybe supports Medicare for all or supports a single-payer system, even though in reality he doesn't, but rhetorically Trump has been saying that he should expand Medicare, that we should do more. If he plays that game again the way he did in 2016, Trump said that everybody should be covered in his healthcare plan. That's what he said. Now, of course, he never meant it, but it tricked enough people. And Trump can do that again. If Trump runs to the left again, to the Democratic Party, rhetorically, even if he doesn't mean it, but rhetorically, not enough people are going to come out and vote for the Democratic Party. Not enough people are going to come out and vote for Joe Biden because Joe Biden is not actually fighting for people and doesn't have the track record of fighting for people. Democrats are setting themselves up for a disaster if they continue down this status quo politics and don't actually fight for real people's needs. It's amazing how inadequate that man is. And like, it's not just his, like, it's funny whenever people criticize Joe Biden on Twitter, the Joe Biden defenders try to make it about, oh, you're attacking him because he has a stutter. I have a stutter. Millions of people stutter. That has nothing to do with anything. It has to do with the fact that Joe Biden doesn't have the answers. He doesn't have the track record. He doesn't have the policy, doesn't have the platform, doesn't have the fight, doesn't have the people around him that will actually fight for you. Like, if Joe Biden all of a sudden surrounded himself with like Bernie Sanders, who Bernie surrounded with, like Breonna Joy Gray, Nina Turner, Rashida Tlaib, if they became the people that called the shots for Joe Biden, I'd feel a lot better. It's about personnel. And it's not even about rhetoric either, because Joe Biden can say, oh, okay, maybe I support, I mean, he was already saying a month ago that he somewhat supports free public college for people. I think if you make under like 100,000 or something, then he supports free public college. So, but even rhetorically, again, that isn't universal. But how can anybody trust Biden on anything he says when he lies all the time? You have to actually, the only way Biden would be able to potentially make any growth in support is if he actually has people around him that you can trust on these issues to actually fight for them. But now also, I mean, you have the sexual assault allegation. And a lot of people now are saying they can't vote for a rapist. How can you argue with that? You want to argue with those people? Because they're right. How could you vote for a rapist? So, just Joe Biden is the worst candidate, the ultimate horrible candidate in every way imaginable. Hillary Clinton was infinitely a better candidate. I'm not even a Hillary supporter, but an infinitely better candidate. And Hillary actually had a base of people that liked her. Joe Biden, all his supporters are people that are just, okay, I guess it's Joe. That's his base. They just think he can defeat Trump because that's what MSNBC told them. It's really sad. Where was I in these super chats? Okay, I think I was here. Samantha Lynn says, my dad lives in Taiwan where they only have death toll of 4 or 5. This isn't the only reason, but their government gives out masks to everyone and everyone wears them when they go out. I'm sure masks help a little bit, but yeah, I can't imagine that's the main reason. But that is interesting. Thank you for sharing. Balthazar says, and before Joe announces Hillary Clinton as VP, then the Dems announce Joe unfit to continue, and we get 2020. This time it's really her turn, the remix. Nah. Hillary's not going to, that would be hilarious. But that would be hilarious. But I can't imagine that's going to happen. Shelby Hall says, Biden has blood in his hands. Droplets stay in the air. He won't be at the polling locations risking his life. That's the difference. Disgusting. David Hart says, Evers has proclaimed that all registered voters will receive a mail-in ballot. And any further, yeah, I'm definitely old. Going back to old super chats here. Any voter that receive a mail-in ballot and any further in-person voting will not be permitted. Breaking news. Yes, just covered that. Sharon Abreu, thank you for your super chat. Prog Rocker says Trump lies. His current budget cuts Medicare, etc. Yeah, of course. Yeah, it does cut Medicare. But that's the thing. Trump, this is why I try and make the emphasis that I'm not defending Trump here. But rhetorically, what he says will fool enough people. because Trump pretends to support things that he does not support, that's better than Biden saying he'll veto Medicare for all. Like, that's just the reality of it, because people are not going to look that deep into it. And the reality is they both suck on the issue. So, like, you suppress the Democratic base. It's not that Trump's going to win Democrats over. It's that Democrats are just going to be like, what's the point? Why would I vote for a guy who's not even going to support Medicare for all? Swirly Swirl says, I watch you in Status Quo for my news. Love your passion. Indiana has extended our stay-at-home order for 2 weeks. Good. 2 weeks is not long enough. This is, just so everyone knows, this is going to be going on for a while. Probably at least a year. So I don't know, but like, I'm sure it'll taper off at some point for the places that deal with this properly. But even then, you want to ensure that it's not going to, that COVID-19 is not going to spread again. So you really have to make sure it's stamped out before we make any rule changes to people staying home. Nick Martiros says, hello again from Vermont. What are some issues with political dynasties like the Clintons and Bush? And does Joe Biden, even though he's not related to Obama, count as a dynastic candidate? That's a good question. What are some issues? Well, my issue is just the built-in advantage that those families have. Like Bernie Sanders. So Bernie's son ran for Congress. Bernie didn't even endorse him because Bernie Sanders said, I don't believe in dynastic politics. He didn't support his own son. Bernie Sanders is a principled politician. If he doesn't believe in something, he's not, even if it's in relation to supporting his own son, he's not going to support him if that means Bernie supporting dynastic politics. So that's the difference here. Is it gives a massive advantage to the children of wealthy individuals, of politicians, of celebrities. That's my issue, my main issue with that. And then, of course, their politics often are also horrible because they come from wealthy families. So they're going to have a different worldview because they're born into wealth, born into fame. They're going to think differently about issues because it's natural for them to think differently about issues because they didn't experience what a real struggle is like. So that is my issue generally with dynasties. Joe Biden does, in a way, calling him a dynastic candidate maybe is not the correct term, but there are definitely advantages that Joe Biden has from being Obama's VP. I mean, Joe Biden was already well known in terms of name recognition before he was Obama's vice president. I mean, he ran for president twice before. So he didn't really need Obama in that sense in terms of name recognition, but it did help to kind of scrub Joe Biden's horrible record before Obama. And that's why, I mean, Obama chose Biden because it made Obama seem palatable to racist white Democratic voters. That's why Biden was chosen. I mean, Biden acts like he was picked because he has a great relationship with black voters. No, that's not the reason. Obama was chosen as the vice president to appeal to racist white people. That's the reality. And in doing so, and becoming Obama's VP, it scrubbed a lot of Joe Biden's terrible record. Matt W. says, postpone the general election or run it online. I don't have a good answer for the general election. I just don't. We're going to have to, this is a day-to-day thing. Going to have to see what the world is like come November. So I don't know. Can you mail in ballot in a general? How does that work? I'm guessing no. But if there was a way to make it all mail in, though, you got to trust those ballots. But I mean, in any democratic process, I guess it could be fooled with somewhat. But yeah, I don't have a good answer for that. Pet May Raskety, thank you for your super chat and cute little emoticon here. Prog Rocker says, looking for Wisconsin, nothing. See reg chat for links. Yes, I think I'm just catching up on super chats. David Hart says there are other issues on the ballot besides the presidential primary. Yes. I don't know why I forgot to mention that. Of course, there's down ballot races, and I imagine there's also ballot initiatives in many of these states. So if you're or would there be for a primary? I don't remember, but yeah, there's at the very least down ballot races, primary challenges or challengers on. My eyes are bothering me. In these states, so it's not just about Biden, Bernie. It's also about who's running down ballot, and that is why it is important that people do go out and vote, but not physically, and not now. All right. I do have a little more here. Let me just do one more story, maybe two more. I didn't really prep these, but this one's not even working. Okay. I like when I'm locked out. That's so weird. Financial Times. For some reason, if I click on a link in Financial Times from Twitter, it loads the page. But if I copy and paste the link, it tells me I need to pay them to view the article. So if I can quickly find this. Here we go. Found a different link for this. All right. Just going to read a little bit of this story because I found it comical. Elon Musk promised ventilators, but what hospitals got were not ventilators. They were something else. I want to share this story. I just find this kind of comical. This is sort of what Elon Musk does in situations like this. He tries to pretend to come to the rescue, doesn't actually. So Yahoo News reports here, quote unquote, ventilators donated by Elon Musk can't be used on coronavirus patients, health officials say. So if I get to the details here, I forget the name of the machines he actually provided, but they are machines that basically, here we go, BiPAP machines. So let me read a bit of this first before I go into the BiPAP machines. So after weeks of brushing off the COVID-19 pandemic as dumb, the billionaire Tesla founder earlier this week announced he had 1,000 FDA-approved ventilators and ended up donating 40 to New York City's hospital system. Except the devices Musk gave away aren't powerful enough to use in the ICU, and health officials have actually warned against using them on COVID-19 patients because they could spread the virus further. So that's what I was going to get into. These machines, so what he actually purchased were BiPAP machines made by ResMed. A photo shared by the hospital. See it there. Stick the Tesla logo on the box to make it seem like he did it. Man, just ridiculous what this man does. Shared by the hospital, system reveals. ResMed CEO Mick Farrell later confirmed Musk's purchase of 1,000 5-year-old bi-level non-invasive ventilators known as BiPAP to CNBC and said it was fantastic that Tesla could transport ResMed's product like it did. Of course, the man just bought 1,000 of your 5-year-old ventilators, your BiPAP machines. Of course, ResMed's excited about that. What are they going to say? How dare Elon Musk purchase our product? No, of course they're going to act like this is a great thing. But hospitals are far more desperate for ventilators more invasive than BiPAP and CPAP machines, which are usually used to treat sleep apnea. Many doctors don't even call them ventilators. In fact, CPAP machines may have only helped spread COVID-19 through the nursing home outside Seattle that was the center of the U.S. initial coronavirus outbreak. These machines can possibly increase the spread of the infectious disease by aerosolizing the virus, NPR writes. Health officials in King County, Washington have since warned against CPAP machines on coronavirus patients, as did the American Society of Anesthesiologists back in February. So this is not this is not going to help. But every time anytime something big is going on in the news that somehow it can deal with technology, like maybe you need a submarine to get kids out of a mine. Remember that one? Elon Musk tries to jump in and solve the problem. And every time people around are just like, what the fuck is this guy doing? So it happened again. And oh, Jesus, just the image with the Tesla logo to me is just really the cherry on top. All right. Should I show you the Neera Tanden tweet that got stomped down by Warren Gunnels? Why not? Let me do that one quickly. I'm just going to show you this tweet. So, Neera Tanden, always good for a laugh. She's on Twitter, as she always is, making a fool out of herself, this time as it relates to Medicare for All. One of the main ways she makes a fool out of herself. Let me show you this interaction here. So, Neera Tanden tweets out, over 6,000 Americans have died from the coronavirus, 1,000 just today. We have one of the fastest growing death rates in the world. Remember, this tragedy was avoidable, this loss of life avoidable, if only our country prepared for it just as countries like South Korea did. South Korea has universal health care, but Wilford Brimley as Rob Spire here responds, so Medicare for all? Neera Tanden replies, you might want to check out the death rate in France before you think that form of healthcare system is the answer here. So Warren Gunnels, he is, I always forget his actual title, but he works for Bernie. There we go. I work for Senator Sanders. So there you go. There's a little comparison here. So life expectancy in France, 82.6 to the U.S., 78.6. Infant mortality rate in France, 3.8 deaths per 1,000 live births. In the U.S., 5.8 deaths per 1,000 live births. Yearly deaths from lack of health insurance in America, 68,000. In France, 0. So when it comes to the coronavirus, yes, no healthcare system in the world can deal with an infinite amount of cases because you know why? There are only a certain amount of doctors. So at some point, you ration care. Now in rational systems, in universal systems, they ration care based on need. In the American system, they ration care based on wealth. If you have a lot of money, if you're wealthy like Neera Tanden is, you have connections to massive corporations, you have great health care because you can afford it. If you're most Americans, you don't. Or if you have great health care, say through your employer, guess what? Massive out-of-pocket expenses. So in universal systems, it's a lot better. Now, again, a universal system isn't going to solve the coronavirus because there's only a certain amount of doctors. But the point is, by and large, as you see here, in a normal situation in everyday life, Medicare for All saves thousands more lives because people have health care guaranteed to them. They never have to worry about the cost. In a single payer system, like in the one in Canada that I live in, you can go to any healthcare, any walk-in clinic, get help because we're all under a single payer system. I can make same-day appointments with my doctor, see my doctor that day in a normal situation, maybe not now, but in a normal situation, see my doctor the same day. A lot of Americans I know, they have to wait a while to see their doctor. Their wait times are in fact longer than in Canada. So this idea that somehow a for-profit system is a better way to deal with the crisis when you're seeing the insanity right now of millions of people losing their jobs during this pandemic and are now without health care because they had their health care tied to their employer. What do those people do now? How are they covered now? And not just coronavirus, but what if they have cancer, another illness? Like, even if coronavirus at some point does get covered, as it should be covered under the American healthcare system, what if that person just got another disease? Why is only coronavirus worthy of covering, but not cancer, but not anything else? Why? It should all be covered. But if you're Neera Tanden, no. No, because she makes a career off of holding up massive corporations, off of ensuring that they have the majority stake in government. You have a system, a healthcare system, because of people like Neera Tanden. All right. Just a horrible person all around. All right, let me I'll finish these chats. I'm hearing cars racing outside. Can you hear that? Jesus Christ. The roads are clear. People think they can street race. All right. Gotta find my place. John O'Shea says, "Hi, David. You need to do more short live streams throughout the week." You know what? That is something I'm actually thinking about. I'm working from home and very bored during the day. That is something I do want to do more. I was doing a bit of that a couple weeks ago. Maybe I'll do more of that. But no, I agree with you. I enjoy doing these, and doing shorter ones would be beneficial. David Hart says, Joe Biden's hosting a fireside chat that cost $2,800 to attend, over 2 times a coronavirus relief check. That's Democratic leadership in a nutshell. I think I saw someone else either tweet me that, or I saw that story somewhere, but that's Joe Biden. That's what he does. Ravi Parimi says Trump's going to cancel the general and declare himself king. Don't worry, folks. Who knows what he's capable of. Thank you, Ravi, for this very generous super chat as well. Everybody, you're all generous right now. I mean, if you're helping during this time, I mean, thank you. But again, if you can't, don't worry about it. And speaking of which, Liz Bismere, I'm sorry, I probably always say your name wrong. Bismere? Liz Bismere says, had to cancel my Patreon due to getting laid off, but I got my last paycheck today, so here's $5. Keep up the great work, David. Liz, thank you. You did not have to do that. Don't worry about the Patreon. I get it. People are in hard times right now. Swirly Swirl says, can Canada take over America and run it for us? Even with its flaws, still better than our current situation. That would be nice. Maja says, it bugs me when people say that Bernie should drop out to unite the party. Like, what the hell is Biden doing to unite the party? It should be on him. You are 100% correct. And in fact, in many ways, you could say Bernie staying in the race right now is actually helping Biden, because there doesn't have to be right now a focus on Biden versus Trump. Because if there was, that would mean a lot more Biden appearances. That would mean a lot more focus on Biden's history, what he's talking about, what he's doing. It's not going to help Joe Biden because he has a horrible record. The shit he's saying now is just not what is needed in this crisis. So in many ways, Bernie's actually helping Joe Biden by staying in. But it's also important that Bernie has a strong voice right now and is discussing what is needed. He's doing live streams consistently. But yeah, I agree with you completely that it's on Biden to try and unite the party. David Hart says, Washington does mail-in voting for all elections. That sounds good. Prague Rocker says Spanish flu studies not norm socially for 1.5 years. So it took them 1.5 years to get over the Spanish flu. I would have to go back and read their response to it. If they caught it as early, or we're aware of what to do as early as we are now. But 1.5 years, yeah, that's a long time. But it's better to think this is going to last longer and then be pleasantly surprised if it's over quicker than what you expect. So, if you set your sights at 18 months or 2 years, I think that's what you should be thinking about right now. And if it happens to go by quicker, good. But don't expect this to go away anytime soon. And do your part by staying indoors as much as possible. Dude Man says, do you like Leonard Cohen or Rush? I had to ask. I like both, but I'm not like, I'm not deep into their work. But no, I enjoy both. Jim Parker says Musk saves America from plague of sleep apnea. That's a great headline. I may even use that. Musk saves America from plague of sleep apnea. Henry Volt says Elon Musk thinks he's Tony Stark. Yes, he does. Nami Us Amanda says checkmark your state laws on writing in Bernie. Petition often required. Checkmark your state laws on writing in Bernie. Petition often required. You mean writing him in for the general? We will get to more of that discussion when we arrive there. Still a long way to go. Roberto Garcia, thank you for your super chat. Maja says, thank you for using your platform to spread the truth about the benefits of a single payer system. I'm trying to convince one Twitter person at a time without much luck. How do we continue to reach more people? I got to be honest with you. A lot of the people you're talking to on Twitter likely aren't real accounts, or they're troll accounts. I imagine David Brock or whoever it is are still paying for troll accounts to, basically tamp down on pro single payer rhetoric or pro Sanders supporters. So Twitter isn't your place to do it. Talk with friends and family, people you know personally. And the best way usually to approach any conversation like this is ask them what they're dealing with, what their healthcare is like, how much they pay in premiums or whatever it is, copays. Like, ask them what their situation's like and then react based on that. So instead of, jumping into a conversation and pushing your ideas on somebody, doing that doesn't normally work. You have to engage people on their issues in their lives, what they deal with day to day. So you start there and then work your way in the conversation from that. But the best advice is to be a good listener. Listen to what the person's saying and react accordingly. And don't be confrontational. Like, you likely aren't going to convince somebody in one conversation to support Medicare for all if they have been tricked by, MSNBC hosts to think otherwise. But if you plant a seed in their brain and you can engage them on their issues, on their terms, and plant a seed that way, then that is the best way to get through to people. Miriam Caracas says, we AOC supporters are struggling economically and do not have enough money to support her. So now she relies more to Democrat Party than us. Isn't it amazing? I don't know if that's the reason. I just think, that's a good observation. The fact that maybe donations to AOC are down, but I don't know if that's the reason she is. Honestly, I think it's personal relationships. When you know people personally, she works with these people in Congress. When you know them personally, it's a lot harder to back a challenger to that person. That's why when it comes to, I don't know, it's important as people that are reporters to stay away from people in power as much as possible. Don't become buddy-buddy with, Congress people, because it becomes a lot harder to actually criticize those Congress people if you're having a drink with them, at 7:00. So you have to be able to separate yourself, but understand these people, AOC is in, this is why I'm critical of her, but also critical in a way that I still understand the issue. She isn't selling out for money or for financial support. She is just unwilling to challenge people in her caucus because she knows them personally. Now, in some cases, she is like Dan Lipinski, who, thank God, lost to Marie Newman. or Henry Cuellar, who is basically a Republican. I mean, both of these Democrats, Dan Lipinski and Henry Cuellar, are basically Republicans in terms of what they support policy-wise. So it's a lot easier to be supporting a challenger to someone who is anti-choice, which both of those candidates are, or both those politicians are. But in the case of other Democrats, where there isn't a consolidation, like Elizabeth Warren, I think even Elizabeth Warren backed challengers to Dan Lipinski and Henry Cuellar. So when even Warren's doing that, it's not a big leap to see AOC do it. It's the tougher ones that you can see the impact that maybe these personal relationships in Congress have on her. But ultimately, look, you could say they are just endorsements. And I don't believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I'll look at the chat here. I don't think AOC got a big endorsement when she beat, I'm forgetting his name, Joe Crowley. So I think the closest she had was Ro Khanna had dual endorsed. Ro Khanna had endorsed Joe Crowley first, and then he got pushback, and he ended up also endorsing AOC. I'm not sure how you dual endorse anybody, but at that point, he's not going to rescind his endorsement to Crowley, so he dual endorsed both candidates. I think that was the most that she got. I don't think Bernie Sanders endorsed her. I don't think Bernie Sanders was endorsing any primary challengers in 2018. So you could argue, hey, AOC did it by going door to door, having a massive volunteer base. Also, keeping in mind, AOC also had a lot of support from outlets like TYT, giving her a platform, really helping to raise money for her and other Justice Dems. So having all that is what led to her victory. Obviously, I would say the on the ground work is the biggest aspect of it, but a lot of that also isn't possible without the money behind you. But AOC did it without an endorsement. Endorsements really aren't everything. But I'm going to call it out. I'm going to say it if I notice that she's acting a little differently than she did in 2018. That's all I'm saying. All right. Is there more? Roberto Garcia, thank you for your message deleted. I think that's it. All right. Thank you for coming. This weekend, what's happening? I don't think I'll be on Twitch this weekend. Maybe Sunday night. If not, Monday night. Follow. First of all, subscribe to the channel. That's an obvious. Hit the like button. But especially, hit the bell icon. I am noticing now, it's not even just me. A lot of YouTubers, independent media, our views are down. I'm not sure if it's because people are depressed, but the reality is YouTube viewership as a whole is up. But independent media, whether it's myself, whether it's TYT, whoever it is, viewership is down across the board. And clearly these videos aren't getting to our audiences for whatever reason. Hit the bell notification icon so you know when I go live or when I have a video go up. That'll keep you updated. And that's it. Also, if you're on Twitch, twitch.tv/The Rational National. That's below the video. Link is in the description box. Follow me on there, and you will also know when to go live. All right. Thank you all for coming. You've been fantastic. The support is amazing. People out there, stay safe. Stay home. I know it sucks. Don't go out. Play video games. Get Animal Crossing. If you have a Nintendo Switch, get Animal Crossing. It's fantastic. It'll keep your mind off of what's happening right now, at least for a little while, and maybe help you get through this. And call your friends and family. Make sure everyone's good. Take care of people around you that maybe need help. All right. That's all I got for you. Thanks for coming. Until next Friday, see you later.